Hello everybody, this is Ryan from my training programs, and today's video is the first weekly overview of my training using the Hanson's Advanced Marathon Training Program. And this week is a relatively simple one. It is 5 6-mile days that were all run at an easy pace, and then 1 8-mile day also run at an easy pace for a total mileage of 38 miles. So in my particular case, I want to be honest that I'm not following this particular calendar exactly in terms of how I'm running the runs from a day-by-day basis. I am running all the runs as scheduled. I've just moved my rest day from their recommended Wednesday over to Saturday. And the reason being is just to fit me and my wife's work schedule really to the best of our abilities. I would caution though, and this is just something I want to put out kind of in each of my weekly update videos, that keeping the rest day on Wednesday is probably most sensible. Because as you move down in future weeks, you can see that there's a lot of weeks where you will do speed work on Tuesday, then take a rest day, and then do speed work again on Thursday. So once that starts to happen in the training program, I will likely follow this program to a T. So with that being said, I'll move on to kind of the second component here of this video, which is kind of revisiting what my goal is in terms of using this plan. I don't plan on running another marathon until later this year. So I'm using this particular plan to train to hopefully run a 1 hour and 20-minute half marathon, either in an upcoming race that I'm eyeing around April, May area, or sometime in August where I have a much more firm date for a particular half marathon that I'm running. So with that in mind, I've used this particular calculator, the Luke Humphrey running pace calculator. And this gentleman was one of the folks who helped co-write the Hanson's marathon method book. So you can use his pacing calculator to get a really good feel of what you should run your mileage at. You can see he details out the workout type and then the pace you should be running based on that workout type. So for this particular week, I would be theoretically trying to run all of my runs somewhere between 7:52 to 8:52 pace in order to stick within that window, with my end goal being that 1:20 marathon. So in terms of the runs themselves this week, I don't want to go over each and every run. I don't think that's terribly necessary given that basically every run was run at an easy pace. But just to reiterate, it was a 38-mile week. And based on the calculator that Luke Humphrey has created for this particular plan, my easy runs should be run in the 7:52 to 8:52 region. And so if we look at my runs, basically almost all of them were, the Monday run was run at an 8:02 pace, Tuesday run 7:59, so a little bit on the lower end of that particular gap of time. Then technically my Wednesday run was run 1 second per mile faster with a few miles considerably faster than the pace recommended, and I'll go over that in a second. And then my Thursday and Friday runs fell within pace. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the longer run for this week, and I'm doing the air quotations for a very particular reason. I will go back to the training plan and explain that in a second, why it's so important to read as closely as possible for this particular plan, because it can be a little confusing comparative to other plans. Now, in terms of my Wednesday easy run, the reason I want to go over this is twofold. One, I think if you use just the overall run pace to guide if you're falling within the correct window, that can be a little deceptive, especially with Strava, or in my case, using a Garmin watch, using Garmin Connect. That can kind of confuse you a little bit because the average pace on Garmin Connect is looking at the window of all the time elapsed on the runs. If you're stopped at a stoplight, things of that nature, whereas Strava obviously just qualifies it based on moving time, right? Now, the other component of this is not only just the overall time it's taking, but what are the individual paces per mile that you're running? And based on this particular run, 7:34 and 7:31 would be 2 miles that are somewhat above, and maybe even 7:31 I would consider considerably above the recommended easy pace based on the 1 hour 20 marathon or 1 hour 20-minute half marathon time that I'm planning on running. Even technically the 7:50 third mile is a touch too fast. So to go over this a little bit further, I found that that particular pace was incredibly easy for me, though, that 7:51 average pace. If you look at my heart rate, it stayed in the average of somewhere from the 130s to the 150s throughout the run. In some cases, touching just a bit above 160, but by and large, it stayed in that 130, 140 to 150 range. which is much, much lower than what my heart rate was. If you go back and you look at my training under the Hal Higdon plan, even a lot of my easy runs and long runs, my heart rate would be 20 beats per minute faster in many circumstances. So clearly the training stimulus from my previous plan has really carried over to this plan. This run felt very, very easy. And you can look at my cadence averaging right around 176, and in many cases, the low 170s to low 180s. Not an incredibly fast cadence. I think it's a relatively average cadence. So it wasn't that I was working extremely, extremely hard or running even super economically well, but it just felt easy. And that's a really good sign. So I do find that the 752 to 852 pacing for my particular end goal is going to work just fine. I really just have to make a good mental note of not overextending and going, well, this feels really easy. Maybe I should bump it down to 730. I think that could be the death knell to this type of program where there's more speed work as you develop into it and go further and further down the road in terms of the roadmap for the program, that is. Now, another component of this that I want to be really clear about is looking at your final run of the week. Look and see if it says easy versus long run. And the reason I want to make a big point of this is because if we go back to the training calculator and the recommended training paces, a long run pace is somewhere between 652 to 822, which is a much faster window of time comparative to an easy run. So I went out on this run on Sunday of the previous week thinking, oh, this is a long run because it's the longest run of the week, when in reality, it was just a longer, easy run according to the training calculator. So I ran this well above pace, on average about 24 seconds per mile faster. And if you go and you look at the individual paces, every single mile is above easy pace, with some of them dipping down into the lower 7 regions. For example, my 5th mile being 750 or 714, excuse me, and my 8th mile being about 720 pace, and a lot of miles in the low 730 region. And another run in the 720, or another mile, I should say, in the 720 mile pace as well. So that's something to be really considerate of, is what is the program saying? And we have to be very, very careful of that. Now you can see, once again, my heart rate wasn't terribly high, a 157. It spiked in a few areas where there was considerable hills. So for example, when my beats per minute here got up above the mid 170 region, this is a pretty considerable hill I'm running up. So not a huge issue from that standpoint. So once again, that's a good sign. And my cadence was obviously much, much faster here as well. More steps per minute, which is fantastic. But, you know, once again, this is just one of those things I really want to caution you folks is, if you're going to use this plan, you really want to make sure that what you're doing is matching the calendar, because this program is built around the idea of cumulative fatigue. As you continue through the program, you're going to run more and more miles on more and more tired legs, and doing more speed work on tired legs for that matter. So really, you have to buy into the easy days or easy recovery type runs that are just putting some time under feet. I would say this all the time in my videos reviewing the Hal Higdon plan, and I would caution the very same thing for this plan. So overall, I think week 1 has gone quite well considering what the plan is calling for. I'm into week 2 already and enjoying this week quite a bit. But this is a simple start to the program, and we'll continue to see how it progresses as we move forward down the calendar. So with that said, I hope you all take care, and we'll see you in the next video.